The morning mist clung to the Afghan mountainside like a shroud, and through her scope, Senior Airman Jessica Mitchell could barely make out the enemy compound nearly 2.5 miles away. Her spotter, Sergeant Mike Rodriguez, lowered his binoculars and shook his head. "Jess, that's an impossible shot. The wind alone will throw your bullet off by hundreds of yards." But Jessica had something to prove, not just to her unit, not just to the doubters back home, but to herself. What happened next would go down as one of the most extraordinary feats of marksmanship in modern military history. Before we jump back, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Jessica Mitchell wasn't supposed to be here. Growing up in rural Montana, she was the daughter of a cattle rancher who'd never fired anything more powerful than a .22 rifle at prairie dogs. While other kids her age were playing video games or hanging out at the mall, Jessica spent her afternoons helping her father repair fences and learning the value of hard work. Her introduction to serious marksmanship came almost by accident when she was 16. Her older brother Jake had been bragging about his hunting skills to his friends, claiming he could hit a deer at 300 yards without breaking a sweat. "Bet you can't even hit that old water tank," Jessica had said, pointing to a rusted container sitting on a distant hill. Jake missed by a wide margin, and when his friend started laughing, Jessica asked if she could try. She'd been watching her father and brother hunt for years, absorbing their techniques, understanding wind patterns and bullet drop through observation rather than formal training. Her first shot rang out across the valley, and the metallic ping echoed back seconds later. She'd hit the tank dead center. Word of Jessica's natural ability spread quickly through their small town. The local gun club invited her to competitions where she consistently outshot men with decades more experience. Her talent wasn't just about steady hands or good eyesight. Though she had both, it was about her ability to read the environment, to feel the wind patterns, and to make split-second calculations that others struggled with, even when given time to think. When Jessica enlisted in the Air Force at 18, her recruiter initially pushed her toward communications or logistics. "We need good people in support roles," he explained, not recognizing the quiet intensity in her eyes. But Jessica had other plans. She'd heard about the Air Force's security forces and their need for designated marksmen. During basic training, her drill instructors quickly realized they had something special. At the shooting range, while other recruits struggled to hit targets at 200 yards, Jessica was consistently placing shots in tight groupings at distances that made seasoned instructors take notice. Her path to becoming a sniper wasn't traditional. The Air Force's designated marksman program was relatively new, and female snipers were even rarer. Jessica faced skepticism at every turn. During advanced individual training, her male counterparts questioned whether she had the physical strength for long-duration missions or the mental fortitude to take a life when necessary. Some instructors worried that her quiet demeanor masked a lack of aggression necessary for combat situations. But Jessica proved them wrong, one shot at a time. During a training exercise in Nevada, she consistently hit targets at ranges exceeding 800 yards in conditions that challenged even the most experienced marksman. Her shooting log showed a level of precision that bordered on the supernatural groups, so tight that instructors initially suspected equipment malfunction. When they tested her with different rifles, different ammunition, and different environmental conditions, the results remained the same. Jessica Mitchell was a natural-born sniper. The psychological evaluation was perhaps the most challenging part of her training. Military psychologists needed to ensure that potential snipers could handle the unique mental pressures of their role. Unlike infantry soldiers who might fire at distant figures or areas where enemies were suspected to be hiding, snipers see their targets clearly through high-powered scopes. They study their targets' faces, their mannerisms, sometimes for hours before taking the shot. The psychological impact can be devastating for those not mentally prepared. Jessica's evaluator, Dr. Sarah Thompson, noted her unusual calmness during stress tests and her ability to compartmentalize emotions while maintaining tactical awareness. Most candidates show elevated stress responses when placed in simulated combat scenarios, Dr. Thompson wrote in her report. Airman Mitchell's physiological markers remained remarkably stable, suggesting an innate ability to manage combat stress that typically takes years to develop. The technical training was equally demanding. Modern military snipers aren't just exceptional shooters, they're mobile sensor platforms, intelligence gatherers, and force multipliers. Jessica learned to calculate bullet trajectories across varying altitudes and weather conditions, to estimate wind speed by observing vegetation, movement miles away, and to account for the Coriolis effect at extreme ranges. She studied ballistics tables until she could recite bullet drop data from memory and practiced range estimation until she could accurately judge distances up to 2,000 yards without electronic assistance. Her first deployment to Afghanistan came in 2019, during a period when American forces were transitioning to advisory roles while still conducting targeted operations against high-value targets. Jessica was assigned to a Special Operations Unit, tasked with supporting Afghan National Army operations in the mountainous regions near the Pakistani border. The terrain was perfect for sniper operations, long sight lines across valleys, elevated positions, and enemies who had grown overconfident after years of fighting conventional forces. The unit Jessica joined had a reputation for unconventional tactics and exceptional results. Led by Master Sergeant David Bear Thompson, a 20-year veteran with 3 combat deployments, the team specialized in long-range reconnaissance and precision elimination of enemy leadership. Bear had initially been skeptical about having a female sniper in his unit, not because he doubted her abilities, but because he worried about unit dynamics and the additional challenges of operating in a culture where women faced particular dangers if captured. Those concerns evaporated during Jessica's first week in country. The team was tasked with providing overwatch for an Afghan National Army patrol moving through a valley known for insurgent activity. Jessica positioned herself on a ridgeline overlooking the patrol route, nearly 800 yards from the most likely ambush points. When Taliban fighters opened fire on the patrol from a concealed position, Jessica identified and engaged 3 targets in under 30 seconds, providing the crucial seconds needed for the patrol to reach cover and call for reinforcements. Shooting wasn't just accurate, it was surgical. Each shot found its mark despite the chaos of combat, suppressed enemy fire, and the physical stress of operating at high altitude. Bear watched through his binoculars as Jessica methodically worked through her targets, her breathing controlled, her movements economical and precise. "I've seen a lot of good shooters," he told her afterward, "but I've never seen anyone who could shoot like that under pressure." The Afghan mountains presented unique challenges for sniper operations. The thin air at high altitude affected bullet trajectory, requiring adjustments to standard ballistic calculations. Temperature variations between day and night were extreme, causing equipment to expand and contract in ways that could throw off carefully zeroed rifles. The terrain itself was unforgiving, rocky, exposed positions that offered excellent fields of fire, but little comfort during long observation periods. Jessica adapted to these conditions with the same methodical approach she'd brought to everything else. She kept detailed logs of environmental conditions and their effects on her shots, building a personal database that made her increasingly effective with each mission. Her spotter, Sergeant Rodriguez, was initially assigned to her as much for his protective capabilities as his spotting skills, but he quickly recognized that Jessica needed no protection beyond what any other team member might require. Rodriguez had been skeptical when he first learned he'd be working with a female sniper. His previous experience had been with male partners who approached the job with what he considered a more traditional aggressive mindset. Jessica's quiet confidence and methodical approach initially struck him as potentially problematic in high-stress situations. "I thought maybe she was too calm," he later recalled. "Like maybe she didn't understand what we were really doing out there." That perception changed during their third mission together. The team had been tracking a Taliban cell responsible for several IED attacks on supply convoys. Intelligence indicated the cell leader would be meeting with weapon suppliers at a KFA compound in a remote valley. Jessica and Rodriguez established their position on a mountainside overlooking the compound, settling in for what could be a days-long surveillance operation. The waiting is perhaps the most challenging aspect of sniper operations. Hours of absolute stillness, maintaining focus while managing physical discomfort, staying alert for opportunities that might last only seconds. Jessica approached these challenges with the same patience she'd learned during long Montana winters, when waiting for the right moment often meant the difference between success and failure. During their second day of observation, Rodriguez noticed movement through his spotting scope. A convoy of vehicles was approaching the compound earlier than intelligence had predicted. Jessica smoothly transitioned from rest position to firing position, her movements so fluid that Rodriguez barely noticed the shift. Through her scope, she could see figures emerging from the vehicles, but identifying the target among them would require patience and careful observation. The psychological pressure of these moments cannot be overstated. A sniper might have one opportunity to eliminate a high-value target, and missing could compromise not only the mission, but the safety of friendly forces operating in the area. The knowledge that Taliban leaders were adapting their security procedures, varying their routes and timing to avoid American surveillance, added urgency to every potential engagement. Jessica's training had prepared her for this pressure, but real combat has a way of testing even the most thorough preparation. Through her scope, she watched as several men gathered near the compound's main building. Her heart rate remained steady, her breathing controlled as she analyzed each figure, looking for the identifying characteristics that would confirm her target's presence. The compound was situated approximately 1,200 yards from their position, a challenging but achievable shot under normal circumstances. However, the afternoon wind was beginning to pick up, creating variable conditions that would affect bullet trajectory. Jessica made minute adjustments to her scope, accounting for the estimated wind speed and direction, the altitude difference between her position and the target, and the specific ballistic characteristics of her ammunition. Rodriguez provided continuous updates through their communication system, feeding Jessica information about wind conditions at different points between their position and the target. Modern sniper teams function as integrated units, with the spotter providing crucial environmental data that allows the shooter to make precise adjustments. The relationship requires absolute trust and seamless communication, qualities that Jessica and Rodriguez had developed through intensive training and previous successful missions. As the afternoon progressed, Jessica maintained her position despite growing physical discomfort. The rocky ground offered little cushioning, and the need to remain motionless for hours created muscle tension that could affect shot accuracy if not properly managed. She used breathing techniques and mental exercises to maintain both physical relaxation and mental focus, skills that separated professional military snipers from recreational marksmen. The target finally appeared as the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the valley floor. Jessica's scope clearly showed the man intelligence had identified as the cell leader, distinguishable by his distinctive clothing and the deference shown by other figures in the compound. The moment she had been waiting for had arrived, and everything she had trained for would be tested in the next few seconds. The mathematics of extreme range shooting are complex and unforgiving. At 1,200 yards, Jessica's bullet would take approximately 1.5 seconds to reach its target, during which time environmental factors would continuously affect its trajectory. A crosswind of just 5 miles per hour could push the bullet several inches off target, while temperature variations could alter the bullet's velocity and, consequently, its point of impact. Jessica had spent countless hours studying these variables, but textbook knowledge means nothing without the ability to read real-world conditions and make split-second adjustments. Through her scope, she observed subtle indicators that most people would miss: the way dust moved across the compound, the movement of vegetation at different elevations, even the behavior of birds in the area. Each detail provided information about wind patterns and atmospheric conditions that would affect her shot. The target moved with the confidence of someone who believed himself safe at such a distance. Taliban leadership had learned to respect American air power and artillery, but they often underestimated the reach of individual snipers. At over half a mile away, the target likely felt secure from small arms fire, unaware that he was being observed through a high-powered scope by someone capable of making such an extreme shot. Rodriguez provided final wind readings and confirmed the range estimate using their laser rangefinder: 1,200 yards, wind 5 to 7 miles per hour, quartering from the left, he whispered through their communication system. Jessica made final adjustments to her scope, accounting for the environmental conditions and the specific characteristics of her rifle and ammunition. The weapon Jessica carried was a customized version of the military standard sniper rifle, modified for her specific requirements and shooting style. Every component had been carefully selected and precisely adjusted: the trigger pull weight, the stock length, the scope mounting system. The rifle had been zeroed at various ranges under different conditions, and Jessica knew exactly how it would perform in the current environment. Her ammunition was equally specialized. Military sniper ammunition is manufactured to much tighter tolerances than standard rounds, with consistent powder charges, precisely weighted bullets, and cases that have been carefully prepared to ensure uniform performance. Each round Jessica carried had been individually inspected and selected for optimal accuracy at extreme ranges. The breathing technique Jessica employed was the result of years of training and refinement. Snipers learn to control their respiratory cycle to minimize the effects of chest movement on rifle stability. The technique involves taking a deep breath, exhaling halfway, then holding that position while making final sight adjustments and squeezing the trigger. The entire process must be completed within seconds to avoid the physical stress of prolonged breath holding. Jessica's finger found the trigger, applying pressure slowly and steadily. The trigger had been adjusted to break cleanly at exactly 3 pounds of pressure, eliminating any uncertainty about when the shot would fire. Her scope remained perfectly aligned with the target as she continued the trigger squeeze. Her body position rock steady despite hours of lying on the uncomfortable rocky ground. The rifle's recoil was substantial but predictable, and Jessica's training allowed her to manage it without losing sight of the target area. Through her scope, she watched as the bullet traveled its arc across the valley, knowing that she would see the impact before hearing the sound of her own shot echo back. From the distant mountainsides, the bullet struck exactly where Jessica had aimed, and the target dropped instantly. Rodriguez confirmed the hit through his spotting scope, but there was no celebration. Professional snipers understand that their role is tactical, not personal, and successful shots are simply the completion of assigned missions rather than causes. For emotional reaction, the immediate aftermath of a sniper engagement requires careful observation and documentation. Jessica and Rodriguez monitored the compound for reaction to the shot, noting the behavior of other individuals in the area and any changes in security posture that might indicate how the enemy was responding to the attack. This information would be crucial for intelligence analysts and mission planners. The psychological impact of the shot extended far beyond the immediate tactical effects. Word of the successful elimination would spread through Taliban networks, creating uncertainty and paranoia among leadership elements. When enemy commanders realize they can be eliminated at ranges they previously considered safe, their behavior changes in ways that often benefit friendly forces. Jessica's successful engagement at 1,200 yards established her reputation within the special operations community, but it was just the beginning of her combat deployment. The Taliban cell she had targeted was part of a larger network, and eliminating one leader often creates opportunities to track and engage other high-value targets as the organization attempts to restructure its command relationships. The technical challenges of the shot were significant, but the professional challenges Jessica faced were equally demanding. As one of the few female snipers operating in Afghanistan, she was constantly proving herself to allies and enemies alike. Afghan National Army partners were often uncertain about working with American female soldiers, while Taliban forces had placed bounties on identified female snipers, considering them high-priority targets. Bear Thompson's assessment of Jessica's performance was unequivocal. "She's not just a good female sniper," he reported to his superiors. "She's one of the best snipers I've worked with, period. Gender doesn't factor into her capabilities at all." This endorsement carried significant weight within the special operations community, where reputation is earned through proven performance under the most demanding conditions. The success of Jessica's first major engagement led to her assignment to increasingly challenging missions. Intelligence officers began specifically requesting her unit for operations requiring precision marksmanship at extreme ranges, recognizing that few snipers possessed her combination of technical skill and operational reliability. However, the mission that would define Jessica's career and test her abilities to their absolute limit was still ahead. Intelligence had identified a high-value target whose elimination would require a shot at a range that most experts considered impossible, a shot that would push the boundaries of what was technically achievable and force Jessica to confront the ultimate test of her skills, training, and mental fortitude. The intelligence briefing came on a cold morning in March 2020, when the mountain peaks were still covered in snow and the valleys below remained shrouded in pre-dawn darkness. Major Sarah Collins, the unit's intelligence officer, spread aerial photographs across the table in their temporary operations center, her expression grave. "We've identified Commander Rashid Ahmed," she announced, pointing to satellite imagery of a remote compound. "He's responsible for coordinating attacks across 3 provinces, and we have a narrow window to eliminate him." Ahmed wasn't just another Taliban commander. Intelligence reports indicated he was one of the key figures, responsible for a series of devastating attacks on Afghan government forces and civilian targets. His tactical innovations had made Taliban operations significantly more effective, and his elimination was considered a high priority by both American and Afghan leadership. The problem was his location and security arrangements. The compound where Ahmed was operating sat in a valley system that made conventional assault extremely difficult. The approach routes were heavily mined and watched, with multiple observation posts that could provide early warning of any ground assault. Airstrikes were complicated by the presence of civilians in nearby villages and the commander's practice of moving frequently between different buildings within the compound. "The only viable approach is through precision sniper fire, Major," Collins continued, her finger tracing the mountainous terrain surrounding the target area. "But we're looking at an extreme range shot approximately 2.5 miles from the nearest viable firing position." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Such a shot would be at the very edge of what was considered possible with current technology and training. Jessica studied the photographs with growing fascination rather than concern, while others in the room were calculating the impossibility of the shot. She was analyzing the terrain, wind patterns, and potential firing positions. Her experience had taught her that seemingly impossible shots often became achievable when broken down into their component challenges and addressed systematically. The longest confirmed sniper kill in military history at that time was approximately 2.2 miles, achieved by a Canadian sniper in Iraq using specialized equipment under ideal conditions. Jessica would be attempting to exceed that record by several hundred yards, in mountainous terrain, with standard military equipment. The mathematical challenges alone were staggering. Bullet drop at such ranges measured in dozens of feet, and even slight wind variations could push the projectile yards off target. Thompson's initial reaction was protective rather than tactical. "That's beyond what we can reasonably expect anyone to achieve," he argued during the planning session. "We'd be setting Jessica up for failure and potentially compromising the mission." His concern wasn't about Jessica's abilities. He'd seen her perform what others considered miraculous shots, but about the fundamental physics involved in such an extreme range engagement. However, Jessica had already begun her own analysis of the mission requirements. That evening, she spread topographical maps across her bunk and began calculating elevation differences, estimating wind patterns based on terrain features, and identifying the optimal firing position for such an attempt. Her approach was methodical and thorough, treating the challenge as an engineering problem rather than an impossible task. The ballistics calculations were complex beyond normal military requirements. At 2.5 miles, her bullet would take nearly 4 seconds to reach the target, during which time it would drop approximately 70 feet due to gravity alone. Environmental factors would have cumulative effects over such distance. A slight miscalculation in wind speed could result in missing the target by dozens of yards. Jessica's rifle would need modifications to attempt such a shot. The standard military scope, while excellent for normal sniper operations, lacked the magnification and precision adjustments necessary for extreme range work. The mounting system would need reinforcement to maintain zero under the stress of repeated shots, and the rifle's trigger system would require adjustment for the level of precision necessary. Working with the unit's armorer, Master Sergeant Jim Peterson, Jessica began preparing her equipment for the unprecedented attempt. Peterson had 30 years of experience with military firearms, but even he was skeptical about the feasibility of the mission. "I can give you the best equipment available," he told Jessica, "but physics is physics. At some point, environmental factors become too significant to compensate for." The ammunition selection process was crucial. Standard military sniper ammunition, while highly accurate, wasn't designed for such extreme ranges. Jessica worked with Peterson to identify rounds with optimal ballistic coefficients, bullets designed to maintain velocity and stability over maximum distances. Each round was individually inspected and weighed to ensure consistency that would be critical at such ranges. Training for the shot required recreating similar conditions at available ranges. Jessica spent weeks practicing at maximum available distances, studying the behavior of her equipment and ammunition under various environmental conditions. She developed an intuitive understanding of how wind, temperature, and atmospheric pressure affected her shots, knowledge that would be crucial when attempting the record-breaking engagement. The psychological preparation was equally important. Jessica knew that when the moment came, she would have only one opportunity. Missing wouldn't just mean mission failure. It would likely alert the target to the threat and eliminate any future opportunities for engagement. The pressure of such a high-stakes shot could affect even the most experienced sniper's performance. Rodriguez continued as her spotter, despite his own reservations about the mission. "I've seen you make shots that shouldn't be possible," he told Jessica during one of their training sessions. "But this is different. We're talking about conditions and distances that no one has successfully engaged at before." His concern was both professional and personal. He'd grown to respect Jessica's abilities enormously, and he didn't want to see her reputation damaged by an impossible mission. The weather reports for the planned engagement date showed typical spring conditions in the Afghan mountains, variable winds, temperature fluctuations, and the possibility of precipitation that could further complicate the shot. Jessica incorporated these factors into her planning, developing contingency approaches for different scenarios they might encounter. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. As the mission date approached, Jessica's confidence grew rather than wavered. Her training had prepared her for extraordinary challenges, and she viewed the 2.5-mile shot as the ultimate test of everything she'd learned. While others focused on the difficulties, she concentrated on the techniques and technologies that made success possible. The mission launch came at 0300 hours on a moonless night in late March, with Jessica's team moving through terrain that seemed designed to test human endurance. The approach to their firing position required a 12-hour hike through some of Afghanistan's most challenging mountain terrain, carrying specialized equipment that weighed significantly more than standard sniper gear. Every pound of additional weight would matter during the lengthy approach march and the extended time they'd need to remain in position. Jessica carried her modified rifle system, which now included a specialized scope capable of magnification levels far beyond standard military equipment. The scope alone weighed nearly twice as much as her previous optic, and its mounting system had been reinforced to handle the additional stress. Her ammunition load was carefully selected 20 rounds of match-grade cartridges, each one individually tested for consistency and optimal ballistic performance. The team moved in single file, along goat paths and dried creek beds, navigating by GPS and night vision equipment while maintaining communication security that prevented any electronic transmissions that might alert enemy forces to their presence. The silence was broken only by the soft sound of boots on rocky ground and the occasional whispered communication necessary for navigation. Rodriguez carried the spotting equipment, including a high-powered spotting scope, laser rangefinder, and atmospheric monitoring instruments that would provide crucial environmental data for the shot. His load also included the team's communications, equipment, and emergency medical supplies, making his pack one of the heaviest. Despite the physical demands, he maintained the steady pace necessary to reach their position before dawn. Bear Thompson led the team with the confidence of someone who'd completed similar infiltrations dozens of times, but even he was impressed by Jessica's performance during the approach march. The additional weight of her specialized equipment didn't seem to affect her pace or endurance, and she moved through the difficult terrain with the sure-footedness of someone completely comfortable in mountain environments. The firing position they'd selected was a rocky outcropping on a ridgeline that offered clear sight lines across the valley to the target compound. The position provided natural concealment and multiple escape routes, but it also exposed them to the full force of mountain weather conditions. At nearly 9,000 feet elevation, temperature variations could be extreme, and wind patterns were notoriously unpredictable. Arriving at their position as the first hints of dawn appeared on the eastern horizon, Jessica immediately began preparing her shooting platform. The rocky ground offered little natural stability, so she used specialized equipment to create a solid rest for her rifle. Every detail mattered: the angle of her body, the height of her rifle rest, the positioning of her spotting scope and range-finding equipment. Rodriguez established his observation position slightly offset from Jessica's location, allowing him to provide spotting assistance while maintaining his own field of view of the target area. His spotting scope was connected to a ballistic computer that could rapidly calculate environmental corrections based on real-time atmospheric data. The technology was impressive, but ultimately the success of the shot would depend on Jessica's ability to interpret and apply the information it provided. The target compound came into view as morning sunlight illuminated the valley floor, revealing details that satellite imagery couldn't capture. Jessica could see the building where intelligence indicated Commander Amdu would appear, but she also noticed security arrangements and patterns of movement that suggested the target was taking significant precautions against long-range threats. Through her scope, Jessica began studying the compound's layout and the behavior of its occupants. Even at maximum magnification, individual figures appeared tiny, barely distinguishable from background features. Identifying the specific target among the people moving through the compound would require patience and careful observation. Skills that Jessica had developed through months of similar operations. The environmental conditions were challenging, but not impossible. Wind speeds were variable, but generally within ranges that Jessica had trained for, and atmospheric conditions were stable enough to allow for accurate ballistic calculations. Temperature variations would affect bullet velocity, but Rodriguez's monitoring equipment provided precise data that could be incorporated into their firing solution. As morning progressed, Jessica maintained her observation position while managing the physical discomfort of lying motionless on rocky ground. The specialized shooting position required her to remain nearly perfectly still for hours at a time, controlling her breathing and minimizing any movement that might affect her rifle's zero. The mental discipline required was as demanding as the physical challenges. Rodriguez provided continuous updates on environmental conditions, using his instruments to monitor wind speed and direction at various points between their position and the target. Modern sniper teams rely heavily on this kind of environmental data, particularly for extreme range shots where small variations in conditions can have massive effects on bullet trajectory. The psychological pressure of waiting for the target to appear was significant. Jessica knew that intelligence estimates suggested Ahmad would show himself sometime during the morning hours, but the exact timing was uncertain. She needed to maintain peak concentration and physical readiness throughout an extended period, ready to take the shot within seconds of target identification. Through her scope, Jessica observed the compound's routine activities, learning the patterns that would help her predict when and where the target might appear. Security personnel moved in predictable patterns. Civilian workers followed established routines, and the compound's leadership seemed to operate according to schedules that Jessica could begin to anticipate. The distance to the target had been precisely measured using laser range-finding equipment, confirming the 2.5-mile range that made this shot historically significant. At such distance, the target would appear as barely more than a speck through even the most powerful scope, requiring Jessica to rely on identifying features rather than clear facial recognition for target confirmation. As noon approached, activity in the compound increased, suggesting that the important meeting intelligence had predicted was about to begin. Jessica could see vehicles arriving and additional security personnel taking positions around the compound. The heightened activity indicated that high-value individuals were present, increasing the likelihood that Commander Ahmed would soon appear. The moment Jessica had been preparing for was approaching, and everything she had learned, every hour of training, every previous successful shot, would be tested in the next few minutes. The impossible shot was about to become either a historic achievement or a devastating failure. The target appeared at 12:47 p.m., emerging from the compound's main building with the confident stride of someone accustomed to command authority. Through her high-powered scope, Jessica could barely make out the distinctive features that intelligence photographs had burned into her memory: the characteristic limp from an old wound, the particular way he gestured when speaking to subordinates, and most importantly, the unique pattern of his traditional Afghan clothing that made him identifiable even at extreme range. Rodriguez confirmed the identification through his spotting scope, cross-referencing the figure's appearance with the detailed intelligence briefing they'd memorized. "Target confirmed," he whispered through their communication system. "Bearing 047 degrees, range 4,400 yards. The moment they'd trained for had arrived, and there was no room for error or hesitation. Jessica's breathing slowed automatically as she entered the zone of absolute concentration that separated professional snipers from recreational shooters. Her heart rate, which had been elevated during the long hours of waiting, settled into the steady rhythm that would minimize the effects of pulse on her rifle stability. Every aspect of her physiology was now focused on creating the perfect conditions. For an impossible shot, the environmental conditions were as favorable as they were likely to get. Wind speeds had stabilized at approximately 8 miles per hour, coming from a consistent direction that Jessica could compensate for in her scope. Adjustments. Atmospheric pressure was steady. Temperature had reached the midday level that her ballistic calculations were based on, and visibility was excellent across the entire 2.5-mile distance to the target. Rodriguez provided final environmental readings and confirmed the ballistic solution using their portable computer. The calculations were staggering in their complexity, accounting for bullet drop of over 70 feet, wind drift of several yards, the effects of altitude on air density, temperature variations along the bullet's flight path, and even the rotation of the Earth itself, which at such ranges could affect point of impact. Jessica made her final scope adjustments with movements so precise they seemed mechanical. Each click of the adjustment knobs represented specific corrections for the environmental conditions they'd measured, translated into the minute changes in barrel angle necessary to place her bullet on target at such extreme range. The mathematics involved were beyond what most people could comprehend, but Jessica had internalized them through thousands of hours of training and practice. The target was moving slowly across an open area between buildings, providing a window of opportunity that might last only seconds. Jessica's crosshairs tracked the figure through her scope, leading the target to account for his movement and the time her bullet would take to cover the 2.5-mile distance. The calculation had to be perfect. At such range, even tiny errors in target leading would result in complete misses. Through her scope, Jessica could see other figures in the compound going about their daily activities, unaware that death was aimed at their commander from a mountain position they couldn't even see. The surreal nature of modern sniper warfare was never more apparent than in these moments. The target lived his final seconds in complete normalcy while Jessica prepared to end his life from a distance that rendered her invisible and invulnerable. The trigger pressure built slowly and steadily as Jessica applied the techniques she'd perfected through years of training. Her breathing had reached the optimal point in her respiratory cycle. Her rifle was rock steady on its bipod rest, and her scope showed perfect alignment with the target. The trigger break would come at exactly 3 pounds of pressure, and Jessica's muscle memory would ensure that the shot fired at the precise moment of optimal stability. The rifle's report echoed across the mountain valleys like thunder, and Jessica maintained her scope picture through the recoil to observe the bullet's impact. At 2.5 miles, she would see the hit before hearing her own shot echo back from the distant mountainsides. The bullet's flight time of nearly 4 seconds felt like an eternity as Jessica watched through her scope for confirmation of the shots. Success or failure, Rodriguez tracked the bullet's flight through his spotting scope, watching for the telltale signs of impact that would confirm the hit. At such extreme range, even a successful shot might not produce immediately visible results, particularly if the target was only wounded rather than killed outright. The team needed clear confirmation before they could consider the mission successful. Bullets struck exactly where Jessica had aimed. Commander Ahmad dropped instantly, his distinctive figure crumpling to the ground in a way that left no doubt about the shot's effectiveness. Through their scopes, Jessica and Rodriguez could see the immediate reaction of other figures in the compound, the confusion, the scrambling for cover, the frantic search for threats they couldn't see or understand. The successful hit at 2.5 miles represented more than just an exceptional shot. It was a validation of everything Jessica had worked toward since her first day of sniper training. The combination of natural ability, intensive preparation, specialized equipment, and favorable conditions had produced a result that many experts had considered impossible. She had not only eliminated a high-value target, but had also set a new standard for what could be achieved through precision marksmanship. Rodriguez confirmed the hit through his communication equipment, transmitting the mission success back to their command element. The elimination of Commander Ahmad would have immediate tactical effects and longer-term strategic implications, disrupting Taliban operations across multiple provinces and demonstrating the reach and precision of American sniper capabilities. But there was no time for celebration or reflection. The compound security forces were already reacting to the attack, and while they couldn't determine the source of the shot, they would be searching for threats and potentially calling for reinforcements. Jessica and Rodriguez needed to begin their withdrawal from the area immediately, before enemy forces could organize a response that might compromise their escape. The impossible shot had been made, but the mission wouldn't be complete until the team returned safely to their forward operating base. Jessica began breaking down her equipment with the same methodical precision she'd applied to taking the shot, preparing for the long journey back through hostile territory, with the knowledge that she'd just achieved something that would be remembered in military history. The legend of Jessica Mitchell's 2.5-mile shot was born in those few seconds. But the full implications of her achievement would only become apparent in the days and weeks that followed. The withdrawal from their firing position began immediately after Jessica confirmed the successful hit on Commander Ahmad. The team had rehearsed this phase of the operation extensively, knowing that their survival depended on rapid movement away from the area before enemy forces could organize a response. Jessica packed her specialized equipment with practiced efficiency, her movements quick but deliberate to avoid leaving any trace of their presence. The rocky outcropping that had provided their perfect firing position now became a potential trap if they remained too long. Rodriguez monitored enemy communications through their intercept equipment, listening for any indication that Taliban forces had determined the general area from which the shot had come. So far, the enemy seemed confused about the nature and source of the attack, but that confusion wouldn't last indefinitely. Bear Thompson had positioned himself at the team's rally point, approximately 500 meters from the firing position, where he could provide early warning of any enemy approach while maintaining communication with higher headquarters. His radio crackled with updates from intelligence sources monitoring the target area, confirming that the compound was in chaos and that multiple vehicles were departing in various directions. The descent from their mountain position required different skills than the approach march. Moving downhill with heavy equipment while maintaining operational security presented unique challenges, particularly when speed was essential, but noise discipline remained critical. Jessica found herself drawing on childhood experiences helping her father move cattle through difficult Montana terrain, using lessons learned in peaceful circumstances to navigate a combat withdrawal. Rodriguez's intercept equipment began picking up increased radio traffic from Taliban sources, indicating that enemy forces were beginning to organize search efforts. The conversations he monitored suggested that the Taliban understood they were dealing with a long-range sniper attack, but they had wildly overestimated the distance involved, focusing their search efforts on areas much closer to the compound than Jessica's actual firing position. This miscalculation provided the team with crucial time to increase their distance from the area before enemy forces could organize an effective pursuit. Jessica's record-breaking shot had been so far beyond what Taliban commanders considered possible that they were searching in entirely wrong locations, giving her team a significant head start in their escape. The physical demands of the withdrawal were intense. The team moved through terrain that challenged even their exceptional physical conditioning, carrying equipment loads that would have been difficult under normal circumstances and were now complicated by the need for speed and stealth. Jessica's modified rifle system, which had enabled her historic shot, now became a burden that slowed their movement through narrow mountain passes. As they descended toward their planned extraction point, Jessica reflected on the magnitude of what she'd accomplished. The 2.5-mile shot wasn't just a personal achievement. represented a new benchmark for what was possible in military sniper operations. The techniques and technologies that had made the shot successful would influence sniper training and equipment development for years to come. The team's extraction was complicated by deteriorating weather conditions as afternoon thunderstorms moved through the mountain valleys. The same atmospheric conditions that had favored Jessica's long-range shot now created challenges for their helicopter pickup, with visibility dropping rapidly and wind conditions becoming increasingly dangerous for aviation operations. Rodriguez continued monitoring enemy communications as they moved, providing updates on Taliban search efforts that remained focused on incorrect areas. The enemy's continued confusion about the source and nature of the attack was providing the team with the time they needed to reach their extraction point. But Jessica knew that their safety margin would decrease as Taliban forces expanded there. Search areas. The extraction landing zone was a small clearing in a valley system approximately 8 miles from their firing position, chosen for its accessibility to helicopters, while remaining far enough from known enemy positions to minimize the risk of interference. The team had identified alternate extraction points in case weather or enemy activity made their primary site unusable, but reaching those alternatives would require additional hours of movement through increasingly dangerous terrain. As they approached the extraction zone, Jessica's thoughts turned to the broader implications of her achievement. Commander Ahmadi's elimination would disrupt Taliban operations across multiple provinces, but more importantly, it would demonstrate to enemy forces that American sniper capabilities extended far beyond what they had previously considered possible. The psychological impact of such a shot could be as significant as its immediate tactical effects. The sound of approaching helicopters reached them as they entered the extraction zone, right on schedule despite the challenging weather conditions. The pilot's skill in navigating mountain terrain under deteriorating visibility impressed even Jessica, who had grown up around skilled pilots who regularly flew in difficult conditions. The helicopter's arrival represented safety and mission success, but it also marked the beginning of a new phase in Jessica's military career. Thompson's debrief with higher headquarters began before they even reached their forward operating base. His report emphasized not just the successful elimination of a high-value target, but the unprecedented nature of Jessica's achievement and its implications for future operations. The 2.5-mile shot would require verification and documentation that met the standards necessary for official recognition. The intelligence value of the mission extended beyond the elimination of Commander Ahmadi. The team's observation of the compound had provided valuable information about Taliban security procedures, communication methods, and organizational structures that would be useful for future operations. Jessica's extended observation through her high-powered scope had revealed details that conventional surveillance methods might have missed. As their helicopter flew through the mountain valleys toward base, Jessica watched the terrain below and thought about the shot that had just changed her life forever. The rocky outcropping where she'd made military history was already invisible in the distance, but the memory of those crucial seconds would remain with her always. She had proven that with proper training, equipment, and conditions, the limits of what was considered possible could be expanded beyond previous imagination. The mission's success would have implications far beyond Jessica's personal achievement. Military sniper programs would need to reconsider their training standards and equipment requirements in light of what she demonstrated was possible. The techniques and technologies that had enabled her record-breaking shot would be studied, refined, and incorporated into future training programs. But for now, Jessica was simply a soldier returning from a successful mission, carrying equipment that had performed flawlessly and memories of a shot that would be discussed in military circles for decades to come. The impossible had become possible through a combination of skill, preparation, and favorable circumstances that might never align again in exactly the same way. The debriefing process began within hours of Jessica's return to the forward operating base with intelligence officers, ballistics experts, and senior commanders all eager to understand exactly how she'd achieved what many considered impossible. The conference room filled with maps, photographs, and technical equipment as specialists began the detailed analysis necessary to verify and document the record-breaking shot. Major Collins led the technical debrief, working with Jessica to reconstruct every detail of the engagement. The laser rangefinder data confirmed the 2.5-mile distance, while environmental monitoring equipment provided precise records of wind speed, direction, temperature, and atmospheric pressure at the time of the shot. The mathematical precision required for such an engagement demanded equally precise documentation. Jessica's shooting log, which she'd maintained throughout her deployment, provided crucial evidence of her progressive skill development and the systematic approach she'd taken to extreme-range marksmanship. The entry showed a pattern of increasingly difficult shots as she built the experience and confidence necessary for the ultimate challenge she'd just completed. Rodriguez's role as spotter was equally important to the mission's documentation. His precise environmental readings and target confirmation had been essential to the shot's success, and his testimony provided independent verification of the conditions and procedures Jessica had used. The partnership between sniper and spotter is always crucial, but at such extreme ranges it becomes absolutely critical to success. The ballistics analysis was complex beyond normal military requirements. Experts calculated that Jessica's bullet had dropped approximately 78 feet during its flight, had been affected by wind drift of nearly 6 feet, and had overcome atmospheric resistance that significantly reduced its velocity over the 2.5-mile distance. The bullet had remained supersonic throughout its flight, but barely so by the time it reached the target. Bear Thompson's tactical assessment focused on the mission's broader implications rather than just the technical achievement. His report emphasized how Jessica's shot had eliminated a high-value target while avoiding the risks and collateral damage associated with conventional assault methods or airstrikes. The precision of the engagement had achieved maximum tactical effect with minimal footprint. The intelligence gathered during the mission proved as valuable as the elimination of Commander Ahmadi himself. Jessica's extended observation of the compound through her high-powered scope had revealed security procedures, daily routines, and organizational relationships that would be useful for future operations against Taliban networks in the region. Of Jessica's achievements spread rapidly through military channels, reaching senior Pentagon officials and special operations commanders who understood the significance of what she'd accomplished. The shot represented not just individual excellence, but a demonstration of capabilities that would influence military planning and equipment development for years to come. The verification process required multiple independent confirmations of the shot's distance and conditions. GPS coordinates were checked and rechecked. Environmental data was analyzed by meteorological specialists, and ballistics experts ran computer simulations to confirm that the shot was not only possible, but had been executed with remarkable precision. Given the challenging conditions, Jessica's equipment was also thoroughly examined and tested to ensure that her rifle and scope had performed within normal parameters during the shot. The specialized modifications that had enabled the extreme range engagement were documented in detail, providing valuable information for future equipment development and sniper training programs. The psychological evaluation that followed was standard procedure after any high-stress combat engagement, but Jessica's case was unique given the unprecedented nature of her achievement. Military psychologists wanted to understand how she'd managed the pressure of attempting something that had never been accomplished before, and how the success affected her mental state and confidence. Dr. Thompson, who had evaluated Jessica during her initial sniper training, conducted the post-mission assessment and found her remarkably unchanged by her historic achievement. She approaches this success with the same methodical mindset she's always had, Dr. Thompson noted. There's satisfaction in accomplishing something difficult, but no apparent ego inflation or unrealistic assessment of her abilities. The media attention began almost immediately, despite military efforts to maintain operational security. Jessica's achievement had occurred during a period when positive military news was rare, and the story of a young woman from Montana setting a new standard for sniper excellence captured public imagination in ways that military public affairs officers found both exciting and challenging to manage. Jessica's hometown of Helena, Montana, became a focal point for media attention as reporters sought to understand the background that had produced such an exceptional soldier. Her high school shooting coach gave interviews describing her natural ability, while her former employers talked about her work ethic and determination. The narrative of small-town girl achieving military greatness resonated with audiences across the country. The technical aspects of Jessica's shot became subjects of intense discussion among civilian marksmanship enthusiasts and military professionals alike. Forums and publications devoted to long-range shooting analyzed every detail of her equipment, techniques, and conditions, with some experts initially expressing skepticism about the possibility of such a shot until official documentation became available. International military observers also took notice of Jessica's achievement, recognizing its implications for sniper training and operations in their own forces. The techniques and technologies that had enabled her success represented advances that could influence military doctrine and equipment procurement decisions across multiple allied nations. Jessica's immediate future became a subject of considerable discussion among her superiors. Her unique skills and proven performance made her valuable for continued operational deployment, but her achievement also created opportunities for training and development roles that could benefit the broader military sniper community. The recommendation process for appropriate recognition of Jessica's achievement began immediately, with multiple levels of command endorsing her for significant military decorations. The unprecedented nature of her accomplishment required careful consideration of which awards would appropriately recognize both the technical achievement and its tactical significance. Bear Thompson's recommendation emphasized that Jessica's shot represented more than individual excellence. It demonstrated the potential for properly trained and equipped snipers to achieve results that expanded the boundaries of what military planners considered possible. His endorsement carried significant weight given his reputation and experience in special operations. As the immediate excitement of the achievement began to settle, Jessica found herself facing decisions about her future that she hadn't anticipated. When she first enlisted, the success of her 2.5-mile shot had opened doors and created opportunities that would shape not just her military career, but potentially her entire life trajectory. The formal recognition of Jessica's achievement came 3 months later in a ceremony that brought together senior military officials, family members, and representatives from the marksmanship community. The event was held at the Pentagon, with Jessica's parents traveling from Montana to witness their daughter receive military decorations that reflected not just her individual accomplishment, but its broader significance to American military capabilities. Jessica's mother, Sarah Mitchell, had always known her daughter was special, but seeing her receive the Silver Star from a 4-star general was a moment that exceeded her wildest expectations. When she was little, she could hit anything she aimed at, Sarah told reporters afterward. But I never imagined it would lead to something like this. Her father's pride was evident, but tempered by his understanding of what such recognition meant about the dangers his daughter had faced. The Silver Star citation specifically mentioned the unprecedented nature of Jessica's 2.5-mile shot and its tactical significance in eliminating a high-value target who had been responsible for numerous attacks on coalition and Afghan government forces. The award recognized not just marksmanship excellence, but the courage required to attempt something that military experts had considered beyond the realm of possibility. General Patricia Hess, who presented the award, emphasized that Jessica's achievement represented the evolution of military capabilities through the combination of advanced training, sophisticated equipment, and individual excellence. Airman Mitchell didn't just set a new record, General Hayes stated during the ceremony. She demonstrated that the limits we thought existed were actually barriers waiting to be overcome. The technical analysis of Jessica's shot had been completed by teams of ballistics experts, meteorologists, and military engineers who confirmed every aspect of the engagement. Their findings were incorporated into updated training materials for military sniper programs, ensuring that future marksmen would benefit from the techniques and insights that had made the record-breaking shot possible. Jessica's achievement influenced equipment procurement decisions across multiple military branches, with weapons manufacturers competing to develop systems capable of supporting similar extreme-range engagements. The scope modifications that had enabled her shot became the basis for new optical systems designed specifically for ultra-long-range precision shooting. The psychological impact of Jessica's success extended far beyond the immediate military effects. Taliban forces in Afghanistan began altering their behavior patterns, with commanders becoming reluctant to expose themselves at distances they had previously considered safe. Intelligence reports indicated that enemy leadership was investing significant resources in countermeasures against long-range sniper threats. Training programs were modified to incorporate lessons learned from Jessica's achievement, with emphasis placed on the systematic approach she had taken to developing extreme-range capabilities. Her shooting logs and training records became study materials for advanced sniper courses, providing insight into the progressive skill development necessary for such achievements. Jessica's post-deployment assignment reflected the military's recognition of her unique value as both an operational asset and a training resource. She was assigned to the Army Marksmanship Unit at Fort Benning, where she would work with the most advanced sniper training programs, while remaining available for special operations missions that required her exceptional skills. The transition from combat deployment to training assignment presented new challenges for Jessica. Teaching others to achieve excellence required different skills than personal achievement, and she found herself needing to analyze and articulate techniques that she had previously performed through instinct and muscle memory developed over years of practice. Her first students were experienced military snipers who had achieved significant success in their own careers, but wanted to learn the techniques that had enabled Jessica's record-breaking performance. Working with these seasoned professionals required her to develop teaching methods that could convey complex concepts to individuals who already possessed advanced skills. The research and development implications of Jessica's achievement extended beyond immediate military applications. Universities and private research institutions began studying the ballistics and human factors involved in extreme-range precision shooting, leading to advances in areas ranging from material science to human performance optimization. Jessica's story became a recruiting tool for military sniper programs, demonstrating that exceptional achievement was possible for individuals willing to commit to the intensive training and preparation required. Her background as a small-town Montana rancher's daughter particularly resonated with rural audiences who had previously considered military sniper roles beyond their reach. The international attention Jessica's achievement received led to invitations to speak at military conferences and civilian marksmanship events around the world. These opportunities allowed her to share insights about extreme-range shooting while learning from other experts in the field, furthering her own development as both a practitioner and teacher. Documentary filmmakers and book publishers approached Jessica with offers to tell her story in various media formats. While she remained focused on her military career, the attention reflected public fascination with her achievement and its representation of American military excellence in an era when positive military news was often overshadowed by broader conflicts. The verification of Jessica's shot by independent experts eliminated any lingering skepticism about its authenticity, with multiple international organizations recognizing it as the longest confirmed sniper kill in military history. The achievement was formally entered into military records and became part of the official documentation of American sniper capabilities during the Afghanistan conflict. Jessica's achievement had implications for military doctrine and tactics that extended far beyond sniper operations. Her success demonstrated that individual excellence, when supported by proper training and equipment, could achieve strategic effects that traditionally required much larger military resources. This understanding influenced planning for future conflicts where precision capabilities might be more valuable than conventional firepower. As Jessica settled into her new role at Fort Benning, she remained connected to ongoing operations in Afghanistan through intelligence briefings and consultation requests from units facing similar challenges to those she had overcome. Her experience and insights continued to contribute to active missions while she worked to develop the next generation of military marksmen. The legend of Jessica Mitchell's 2.5-mile shot had become firmly established in military history, but for Jessica herself, it represented not an endpoint, but a foundation for continued service and achievement. She had proven that the impossible could become possible through dedication, skill, and courage, and she remained committed to helping others reach similar levels of excellence. 5 years after her record-breaking shot, Jessica Mitchell had become one of the most respected instructors in military sniper training, working with students from across the United States military and allied nations. Her classroom at Fort Benning was filled with advanced ballistics computers, environmental monitoring equipment, and examples of the specialized weaponry that made extreme-range shooting possible. But she always began her courses with the same fundamental message that had guided her own development. "Equipment doesn't make the shot," she would tell each new class of advanced marksmen. "Training, preparation, and mental discipline make the shot. The equipment just makes it possible to apply those fundamentals at distances that previous generations couldn't imagine." Her teaching methodology emphasized the systematic approach that had enabled her historic achievement, breaking down complex challenges into manageable components that students could master progressively. The students who came to learn from Jessica were already accomplished snipers in their own right, many with multiple combat deployments and significant achievements. Teaching them required her to constantly refine her own understanding of the techniques and principles that had made her success possible. She found that explaining concepts to others deepened her own knowledge and revealed aspects of marksmanship that she had previously performed through instinct. Jessica's research and development work with military contractors led to advances in sniper equipment that benefited the entire precision shooting community. Her insights into the requirements for extreme-range engagements influenced the design of new rifle systems, optical equipment, and ammunition specifically optimized for ultra-long distance shooting. The knowledge gained from her 2.5-mile shot continued to produce practical benefits years after the achievement. The psychological aspects of extreme-range shooting became a particular focus of Jessica's teaching and research. She had learned that the mental challenges of attempting shots at unprecedented distances were often more significant than the technical obstacles, and she developed training methods specifically designed to prepare marksmen for the pressure and isolation of record-breaking attempts. Her collaboration with sports psychologists and performance specialists led to new understanding of how elite marksmen managed stress, maintained concentration, and executed complex tasks under extreme pressure. These insights found applications not just in military training but in civilian competitive shooting and other high-performance activities that required similar mental discipline. Jessica's personal life had evolved significantly since her deployment to Afghanistan. She had married Rodriguez, her former spotter, in a ceremony that brought together military colleagues and family members from Montana. in a celebration that reflected both her rural roots and her military achievements. Their partnership, which had been forged in combat conditions, had developed into a personal relationship built on mutual respect and shared experiences. The couple's work at Fort Benning allowed them to continue collaborating professionally while building a life together that balanced military service with personal happiness. Rodriguez had become an instructor in advanced spotting techniques, working with Jessica to develop integrated training programs that emphasized the critical relationship between snipers and their spotters. Jessica's parents visited Fort Benning regularly, marveling at the transformation of their daughter from a ranch kid who could hit prairie dogs with a .22 rifle into an internationally recognized expert in precision marksmanship. Their pride in her achievements was matched by their amazement at the technical sophistication of modern military sniper operations, which bore little resemblance to the hunting they had taught her as a child. The broader impact of Jessica's achievement continued to influence military operations around the world. Her shot had demonstrated capabilities that changed how military planners approach certain types of missions, leading to increased emphasis on precision operations that could achieve strategic effects with minimal resources and reduced risk of collateral damage. International military exchanges brought students from allied nations to learn from Jessica's expertise, creating relationships that strengthened cooperative capabilities and shared understanding of advanced sniper techniques. Her reputation had become a diplomatic asset, with foreign military leaders specifically requesting opportunities for their best marksmen to train under her instruction. The civilian marksmanship community had also embraced Jessica's achievement as an inspiration for their own pursuits of extreme range accuracy. Her techniques and equipment choices influenced competitive shooting sports, with manufacturers developing civilian versions of the specialized gear that had enabled her military success. She occasionally participated in civilian competitions, using these events to maintain her skills while supporting the broader shooting community. Jessica's autobiography, published in collaboration with a military historian, became a bestseller that introduced her story to audiences far beyond the military and shooting communities. The book emphasized not just her record-breaking achievement, but the values of dedication, preparation, and perseverance that had made it possible, inspiring readers to pursue excellence in their own fields. Speaking engagements took Jessica to universities, corporate events, and leadership conferences where her story served as an example of how individuals could overcome seemingly impossible challenges through systematic preparation and unwavering commitment. Her message resonated with diverse audiences who found inspiration in her journey from small-town Montana to military history. The legacy of Jessica's 2.5-mile shot extended far beyond the immediate military effects of eliminating Commander Ahmada. It had demonstrated that human potential, when properly developed and supported, could achieve results that expanded the boundaries of what was considered possible. This lesson applied not just to military operations, but to any field where individual excellence could produce extraordinary results. As Jessica looked toward the future, she remained committed to military service while exploring opportunities to share her expertise with broader audiences. Her achievement had opened doors she never could have imagined when she first enlisted, but her fundamental dedication to excellence and service remained unchanged from her early days in Montana. The story of Jessica Mitchell's impossible shot had become legend, but the woman herself remained focused on the ongoing work of developing the next generation of military marksmen and contributing to the continuous improvement of precision shooting capabilities. Her record might eventually be broken, but the principles and techniques she had demonstrated would continue to influence military operations for decades to come. The impossible shot had become possible through a combination of natural ability, intensive training, advanced equipment, and favorable conditions that might never align in exactly the same way again. But Jessica had proven that with proper preparation and unwavering determination, The limits of human achievement could be pushed far beyond what previous generations had thought possible. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.